Do you want to collect retired modular buildings, but the sets in the boxes are just so expensive? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys an alternate solution to that problem right now. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, and today we are going to be taking a look at this bin right here. While it doesn't look like much at the moment, what's inside here is actually the pieces for the fire brigade. The 2009 modular building is unfortunately one of the ones that I did not get in my collection as of yet. I have gotten most of the modular buildings on store shelves. There have been a couple of them that I bought secondhand, the Corner Garage and the Grand Emporium to name a few, but the Town Hall as well as this fire brigade right here are the ones that I have decided to part together. I did not want to spend $800+ on a sealed Town Hall, and I did not want to spend a $500 or $600 price tag on a sealed fire brigade. And so what I've opted to do instead is download the free instructions that you can get online. And I'll link that part of LEGO's website down in the description if you want to go check that out for yourself. They have almost every manual that they've ever released. So you can go ahead and you can check that out. The fire brigade is obviously on there. So I went through and I downloaded that, but the quality of that unfortunately wasn't the best. So I went to Bricklink instead and I got a PDF of all of the pieces. You can see me scrolling through all those pieces right now. And what I did was I essentially made that my checklist. And so I went down the list and I went through my own parts inventory, like you can see here, and I started to amass those pieces. And eventually I got to a certain point where I knew I needed to order certain pieces that I just did not have in my collection. And so what I did was I went into Bricklink Studio and I imported the set from there. And then what I did was I laid out all of those pieces and I went through and I deleted all of the ones that I already had in this bin. Once I had a definitive list of all of the pieces that I still needed in Studio, I went ahead and I saved that file and I uploaded that to a wanted list on Bricklink. From there, I was able to get all of these pieces from a handful of sellers, which was really, really great to see that I didn't have to buy from 15 different people and pay shipping 15 different times. So that was really, really convenient that I was able to get that all in. And so now all of the pieces for the fire brigade are here. And I will leave the total amount of money that I spent on this project at the end of the video. And so with that, let's go ahead and build the modular building here. I'll show you guys what it looks like, and I'll show you pictures of the real thing because technically this is not the set. This is just the amalgamated pieces of the set. And so with that, I'm going to show you guys that there's little to no difference, and you can also swap pieces out that are really expensive or you just don't have in your collection. So a number of days have passed since that last clip, and the fire brigade is now done. I've gone ahead and I have built the entire model here, and so I'm going to give you guys a quick tour of it, and also I'm going to show you guys quick comparisons between this and the real thing because I did swap out a number of different pieces on this, mainly due to the cost of certain pieces in this set and also just the availability of these pieces and the color swaps that I had in my collection. I figured some of these were just more convenient for me personally, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to give you guys a quick overview of the entire model here, and then we can talk about that, and I'll tell you guys how much I paid for all of the other pieces in this set, because a number of them did come from my collection, and then the rest of them came from Bricklink and also Lego Bricks and Pieces. So here is the fire brigade up close here, and so as you can see, this looks almost identical to the official set here. I'm using just pictures that I found on the internet, mostly from Lego's website, but as you can see, the model mostly looks identical, and even when you spin it around, it uses the same brick work on the side here, so all of the creases are the same. And then on the back here as well, it has the chromed or metallic grill tiles, and it has all the details on the back as well. And something that you probably didn't notice, which was the first modification that I made to this, was that the set calls for two 16x32 base plates to make the base. Instead of doing that, I opted to go ahead and just use one 32x32 base plate, just because I felt like that was easier, and also 16x32 base plates, at least for me personally, are hard to come by. So I wanted to use what I had in my collection. It wasn't really worth spending money on the half base plates, and so I just used what I had. And then the next couple of modifications here were actually to the interior of the first floor here. So I'll take the top levels off so you guys can get a little bit of extra light in there. And so as you can see in there, there is actually light gray tiles going down the middle, and I even have a yellow tile on the front end here just for the marker of where the garage door pieces come down. And so I added that in as opposed to what the original set wanted, which was this 8x16 tile here. I originally had this in there, but it did warp the base plate, and I didn't want to have any lasting damage to my base plate or any of the other parts of the model, so I left this out. And plus, I think the light gray looks better when it continues from the part out front with the 3 on it. So I did that, and I didn't have enough 4x4 tiles in here, as you can see. And so I opted to just use some quarter round tiles to make it look like the pavement's cracking a little bit, and also some 2x4s and 1x4s and things like that. And so that is the only real modification that I had made to the first floor, other than the Technic bricks, changing them from tan to dark bluish gray, just because I didn't have 4 tan ones available, and I didn't really want to spend money on that. It didn't seem to make sense, so I went ahead and just added 4 dark gray into the model, because that was the color that I had 4 of, and so I just went with that. And the one final change that I made wasn't to the building, it was actually to the outside of the model. I tile my sidewalks just a little bit differently than how Lego does it. And so instead of having the original set, which is the light gray tile and then a layer of 1x2 tile, and then the 2x2 tiles start from there, I just go straight from the light gray tile to the 2x2s. And so I just completely omit the 1x2s, so I swap that up. And I did also add a couple of extra pieces to the set as well, namely this 2x2 plate under the lamppost. I think that helps complete it a little bit. And I also added yellow 1x1 plates under these columns of cylinders. I think that also helps complete the look, and I did the same on the inside as well. And this kind of gives you a better look at the interior here. Let's see if it'll focus. And the walls on this are seriously tall. They are over 15 bricks tall just on the first floor. So it is pretty hard to get a good view in here, but I am trying to get a decent view in the inside here. And so the tree, I will be modifying in the future and completely redesigning it from the ground up, but figured I would just build it as the set calls for it. So I didn't really feel it was necessary to change that all that much. And that is pretty much everything. Now, there is one thing that I left out of the first floor here, and that was the garage door panels. Now, you'll see a couple of them here, the white bottom one and the 2 clear ones, but the set also requires 8 of the red ones. Now, the red ones have appeared in more than just the Fire Brigade set, but those pieces are extremely hard to come by, and they go for about $8 to $10 a piece. And most sellers only have 1 of them, if any at all. So it is pretty expensive to get those. So not only would you be paying $80 just for 8 pieces, you'd also have to pay for shipping from 8 different sellers. And so that adds up way too much, way too fast. And I didn't think it was worth it, especially since the City Tower set, the big City Summer set from 2025, it has 6 of them in red in the set itself. And so I am hoping that one day LEGO will add it to the Bricks and Pieces website, and also subsequently open the standard Bricks and Pieces portion of the website to North America again. And then I can go ahead and buy those, because I really do not want to be paying $80 for them. So I'm holding out for that. So that's why that is like that. But I can just open this up and then have the fire truck right on the inside. And speaking of the fire truck, the only modification I made to this is that this Technic piece is supposed to be yellow. But other than that, this is pretty simple. It's a very nice build, actually. So if you have time to go and look at the instructions here, I highly recommend that you do that. I think it's pretty cool, and I think it is a really neat build. I think it fits the era of what the building is supposed to be from. I think that fits really nicely. And so with that, that is everything on the first floor. So let's go ahead and take a look at the second floor, and then also the roof, and then we can talk about some of the other modifications that I have made and plan to make, and then also the final cost as well. So the second floor is pretty basic, all things considered. It might look really intense from the front, but all it really is just a bunch of snot bricks on the front, and then you just put a bunch of tiles on top of that. And then that is pretty much it. These pieces here are surprisingly expensive. I didn't think that they were, because I had a couple of them in my collection, but I did need to buy them for this. And so I did have to pay a pretty penny for the 3 of those in the set. There's one here, and then one on the fire truck. And then coming around the back here, you can see that everything else is pretty standard. So from the outside, it just looks like the normal set, but I did have to make a couple of modifications, namely just to the fences here. I didn't have the newer version of the fence that only has 2 studs on the outside, so I did have to swap them out. But other than that, the set here is just exactly how the original one was. So that is great to see that this is identical. And then from the roof here, all you can see is that everything here looks to be in order, but I did add a couple of extra pieces to that as well. I did go ahead and add these extra 1x2 tiles on the top here, just so that it can look a little bit more complete, because without them, it was only the 1x6s here, and I didn't think it looked that great personally. I thought it just felt a little bit more intentional and fleshed out when you add the 1x2s, but that's just me personally. And then the other modification I made was to this corner here, and I am going to be adding it to the other side, but I wanted to show you guys the before. So the 2x4 in the original set is just hanging off here, and then in my modification here, I just added some 1x1 bricks. Super simple fix, but I really wanted to fix that up because that was bothering me just a little bit. And that is pretty much everything for the roof. The only thing I would change is that I would change the 2x2 plate to a jumper, and then that way you don't have this awkward gap here. I don't think that looks that great. So other than that, that is everything on the fire brigade that I changed. Everything else was pretty standard. There are a lot of small pieces on the model, as I'm sure you can tell. A lot of 1x1 and 1x2 tiles, especially on the front here, like the light bluish gray and the dark red. And a lot of these 1x1s and the 1x1 plates and stuff that are used over here, those are oftentimes extra pieces in sets, and so light bluish gray is an extremely common color. So chances are that you already have a lot of these pieces. But then again, this goes for every set. It's not just for the fire brigade. Now, the figures here, you'll notice that there are 3 in my hands here, and there is actually 4 in the set. The reason I'm missing one is because the 4th figure has a sand blue torso that has no printing on it, and I do not have that in my collection, and it is about $5 to $6 just for the torso. And then if you wanted to buy the whole figure, it is well above that. And so I didn't feel like spending the money on it because it was not worth it to me. So I just went ahead and I had all of these pieces in my collection. So I just made these figures here, and then that was pretty much it. But these figures are extremely simple. As you can see, they have the classic smiley face and then the different hair accessories and helmets and things like that. And so super simple figures, but overall I am pretty happy with them, and I have more of these torsos so I can add more firefighters as well. And so with that, after going through the set and taking a look at it and comparing it to the original model, I did make a couple of modifications, like I said, but for the most part, you can't even tell the difference, which I think is really awesome, and it helps save a ton of money as well. The main modifications, like I said, were the base plate swap, the 8x16 tile in here, and then the 1x2 tiles up on the top, and then I also added the stacks of 1x1 bricks, like I said, on the roof. And then there were a couple of other smaller details that I added as well. Now, I did have a lot of these pieces in my collection, like I said, but the pieces that I did have to buy were the more expensive ones, like the 1x6 bricks in dark red, the 1x2 bricks in dark red. I had to buy some of the larger light bluish gray bricks, and I also had to buy the rare pieces, like these engine grill pieces for the windows and also the vehicle. And then I also had to buy the tubes here on the side of the vehicle as well. And I also had to buy these white pieces as well up on the top here, just to name a few. And so I had to buy about 45% of the pieces. Again, those 45% of the pieces were more expensive than the other pieces because a lot of them were 1x1 tiles in dark red and light bluish gray, both of which I already had. There were a lot of smaller pieces like the 2x2 tiles, the 1x2 plate, the 1x1 plate, the brackets, and things like that. And so I had a lot of those pieces already in my collection, and even still, I did have some of the rarer pieces in my collection anyways. I did have these doors in my collection already, so that was great. That and the hinges saved me a ton of money. And then the price overall for what I paid for those 45% of the total pieces was 170 US dollars. That includes the one bricks and pieces order that I got directly from Lego, and that includes the various bricklink sellers and the shipping. So it's $170 and change, but just to make the number easy, it's an even $170 for all of this here. Now, this did take a lot of time, obviously, to source the pieces and count them and make sure that everything was here, but I think that was absolutely worth it in something like this. I think doing it myself and actually going through and picking out the pieces and then using them for my own collection was a fantastic idea for this, because there's some pieces that I would have just never used otherwise. And so getting to use them in a build like this and to also get one step closer to completing my modular building collection feels really, really good. And so when you compare the $170 price tag for this building right here, which is what I paid, and you compare that to the new in-sealed box price of the set here, you are easily seeing that there's a massive, massive discount between the price that I paid and then the actual price of the new and sealed box ones. I could have bought a used one that was pre-built and maybe incomplete or 95% complete or something like that. To me, that's not really worth it because, for one, I want the building experience of the model, and for two, I want to know that the pieces that I'm using are not going to break on me. A lot of the dark red and the reddish brown in this set is from the prime era of the brittle brown and dark red pieces, and so buying all of these new pieces in those colors helped ensure that they're not going to break on me when I'm building, and also if I'm taking the floors apart, they're not going to crack either. So this was a really nice way to just ensure that I am using new pieces and I'm not going to be cracking any, and then I have to supplement pieces from my own collection. So just doing that right from the start really helped a bunch. And if you guys are doing this as well, whether it's for modular buildings or for various other sets that you want, whether it's from your childhood or if it's from different eras of Lego that you just never had the chance to get, that is something to keep in mind as well. Just to know that some pieces, especially the brown and the dark red, are rather brittle if you go back 20 years and you bought it sealed in the box. So just keep that in mind about this set here. I know this isn't particularly old by any means, but this is still something to note as well. And again, like I said earlier on in the video, this doesn't just apply to modular buildings. You can do this with any set. You're going to have an easier time doing this if it's a smaller set, but that's only if the pieces that you're using are not rare colors. And so with that, that is everything that I wanted to cover with this building and also how I made it as well. And so this is a very, very beneficial method if you have the time and you have a pre-existing parts inventory. Then this is definitely a viable option if you're looking to get some of the older sets. I know this isn't particularly old by any means, but if you wanted to get a classic space set in your collection, or if you wanted an older castle, this is definitely a way to do that without breaking the bank. This will save you a ton of money. And so with that, if you found this informative or at the very least entertaining, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss any future uploads, like when we go ahead and add the fire brigade to the city, and also when we do this again in the future with a different set. But with that, thank you guys for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye for now.